Jimmy Dang from Maximum PC here, speaking with Dan from Playful at Oculus's launch event. And Dan, can you sort of walk us through what we just watched?
Sure. So what we're demoing today is basically the entire Lucky's Tale game. So you played through the new player experience, so all the opening story, rolling right into the first level, and from there we're showing how levels unlock, and you can see all our secret modes that kind of spawn once you've completed a regular level.
Yeah, and I just played the game for about 10 minutes or so, and I get a very Mario 64 kind of vibe from it. Were you guys like heavily inspired by that title? Were there other titles you guys were inspired by?
Certainly, Mario 64, Banjo Kazooie, almost all of those like lovely 3D adventure games, platformers that we played growing up. They kind of helped inform Lucky's Tale, and then we have this whole new medium that we wanted to fold into that mix. And so VR presents a lot of interesting level design constraints, aesthetic constraints, things like that you want to factor in. So we pulled in as much as we could from the games that we loved, and then we gave it our very unique spin in terms of VR level design, our character, all of those things. So we just basically want to relive that moment of playing some of our favorite 3D platformers, but in this brand new medium where you're there with Lucky.
Yeah, can you sort of talk about the design philosophy behind the game? Because I think most people, when they think of VR games, they think, first person or something like that. Obviously, you guys went with the third person platformer. Can you sort of, talk about that decision?
Sure. I mean, we even tried that at the beginning. Before you've even made a VR game, you kind of have to explore the space and you say what works and what doesn't work. So we did a ton of prototyping, and one of the first things our minds leapt to when we thought of a platformer was, well, you are Lucky, right? You're in the eyes of Lucky. But in this case, that can actually make you sick very quickly, and it's hard to see on top of platforms. Everything looks gigantic. So that kind of was the first wall we hit. And we're like, well, that's not really going to work out, at least how we thought it would. So when we pursued third person, what we realized is it's actually a first person perspective because you're in there with Lucky, but Lucky is kind of the expression of your intent. So you make him jump up the platforms, and then you can kind of be at this very comfortable distance following him, and you can take in the world as Lucky does, but kind of from a different perspective. And suddenly everything feels like maybe I've spread my toys out on a table in front of me, and I'm getting to play with my figurines and in this cartoon world that feels very real and very weighty.
What do you have to say to people who are like, can't you just make that game on a traditional 2D monitor?
Well, you can. Something we really love about Lucky's Tales, we think it's one of the most pure expressions of the 3D platformer. Specifically, there are a lot of abstractions that got introduced with when 2D games went 3D. So if we take like Mario 64, suddenly I have to control the camera with an analog stick, right? And I know a ton of people who dropped off right then. They said, I can't do it. I'm not, I kind of adapted. I was a gamer from a very young age, but a lot of people just kind of fell off and said it's just too much overhead, right? So in this game, you just look where you want to go, and suddenly that abstraction is completely removed. Secondly, you're using actual depth perception to make jumps, so I don't have to just have this death grip on where my blob shadow is on the ground, right? I can use my own depth perception. What we found is that then the underlying mechanics of a 3D platformer suddenly become second nature. I know about how far away that is, and I can judge whether or not I can make that jump.
And how long are you guys targeting the experience to be?
It depends a lot on how you play. So we're hoping to get somewhere between 4, maybe on the short end, and 8 on the longer end.
Normally, I'd ask, about price and release date. You guys are, shipping on March 28th, I believe, right? And coming with the Oculus Rift system, right?
We are bundled with the Oculus Rift. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, how does it make you feel to be actually, bundled with the system?
It's incredibly exciting. The thing that we always wanted for Lucky and for this game is we felt like this is a game I would love to play if I just got my brand new hardware, right? I want to give this kind of joyful, amazing, colorful burst of fun. First thing, that's not about necessarily, all the extreme things that you can do, but it's this gentle but really exciting kind of lead into VR and what's possible. And I think Lucky is a great character to kind of be the shepherd through that first experience for a lot of people. So, we're unbelievably thrilled.